Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. This episode, the D Spectrum 6. Yeah, my 150th episode marker. Welcome back to Apatros Review. Now this is the last installment of the D Spectrum for the year of 2020, and the sixth one I've done so far. Now unlike the earlier ones, I have gotten under budget for this one, since I haven't encountered enough bad films in the past 25 episodes, so this will be a little shorter than the last one I did. For those who are not familiar with the purpose of this thing, I'll explain as follows. The D Spectrum is basically me talking about all the bad movies I've reviewed over the past 25 episodes. I do one of these for every 25 reviews, and explain why I gave them their respective grading. The films that qualify for the D Spectrum all have grades of either D+, which is a 3 out of 10, meaning they're disappointingly mediocre, a D, which is a 2 out of 10, meaning they're bad, or the dreaded D-, 1 out of 10, mostly only reserved for the worst movies that are unable to be enjoyed in any way, unless you're a movie masochist. Although I don't include films that are enjoyably terrible, it does give an alternate grading system, hence the title. So without wasting any more time, here goes. And by the way, this is shown Christmas Eve of 2020. Hope you guys have a good Christmas tomorrow. Now first up on the plate is Absolute Evil, one of Ulli Lommel's ultra-cheap horror features that he made during the 2000s. This one came out in 2008, which was at the end of his career. Having David Carradine in one of his last films, Absolute Evil is a story about a woman who tracks down the greasy Hood who killed her father in a botched robbery when she was a child, only for her to fall in love with said Hood when he confesses to her. But his partners in crime don't want him blabbing their secrets, so they murder him. Saved from going to prison by a guardian, who happens to be an underworld lawyer, the woman tries to cope with her loss while the guardian uses his underworld connections to hunt down the remaining hoods and take them out, after he learns that they intend to silence the woman. Unlike his earlier direct-to-video works, Lommel doesn't focus this one on serial killers, and largely abandons his trademark lather, rinse, repeat mode of storytelling, although the film does get a little repetitive. Not as bad as some of his earlier films, but still not anywhere near being a decent film. Absolute Evil gets a D. Now, 2 years after the original Critters became a cult hit on video store shelves, New Line Cinema made the first of several sequels to Stephen Herrick's classic sci-fi horror comedy about many alien furballs who promptly wreak havoc in a small town. But Critters 2 ends up being the worst of the bunch, thanks to director Mick Garris, known for his constant mangling of several Stephen King adaptations, and his decision to pitch the humor down to the lowest common denominator level, and putting in a clumsy tone to the proceedings that comes off like a person letting off a loud fire in a packed church. Critters 2 isn't exactly terrible, but is unrealistically stupid. Critters 2 gets a D+. Now, as part of my Corona-Ween special I did for Halloween of this year, I reviewed what many fans of Z-grade genre schlock consider to be the worst film ever made, the 1966 Harold P. Warren horror fantasy feature Manos, The Hands of Fate. Almost as cheap as Ulli Lommel's films, were proving to be infernally difficult to make heads or tails of the plot, with a ridiculous storyline that goes nowhere fast, and a slew of bad performances, especially John Reynolds, who was seriously tripping on LSD when he did this part of the Bentley Satyr Torgo. Manos, The Hands of Fate is probably the very worst film I've ever seen, although that doesn't count films that are offensively bad. And the fact that almost nobody involved in this production ever went on to make anything else is testament to the film's power of badness. The film was never released on VHS due to being out of circulation for a very long time, until that legendary episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 was broadcast in 1993, prompting people to track down the few remaining copies of the film, and there are now restoration prints available on DVD and Blu-ray. And the MST3K episode also got its own separate release. Manos, The Hands of Fate, D-. Was terrible. Now, I also did a number of Steven Seagal direct-to-video features in the 2000s, a perennial topic for my 2020 season, and two of the worst ones from the past 25 reviews consist of Fly of Fury, which was an almost word-for-word remake of the 1998 Michael Dudikoff B-action feature Black Honda, itself a direct-to-video release as well, about a pilot sent in to recover a stolen prototype fighter jet with inbuilt cloaking device, sort of like, Star Trek remote spaceship sort of thing, from terrorists intending to use it for the ultimate terrorist attack. Seagal plays a pilot hero in this remake, which doesn't credit the original film at all, despite copying most of the plot beats and character names, even large portions of the dialogue, and even the musical score in its entirety. And the location of the terrorist camp is moved from Libya to Afghanistan, which was a massive mistake given the sheer amount of logic flaws sprouting up from this boneheaded decision, and a lesbian scene that came out of nowhere, which became infamous among Seagal fans. A bad film on all accounts, which gets a D. Not the worst of Seagal's films, but pretty close to it. And the other Seagal film being Into the Sun, which was an earlier direct-to-video Seagal actioner, involving Seagal returning to Japan to take on some violent upstart Yakuza, who are joining forces of Chinese triads to outmuscle the other Yakuza. Seagal and the good Yakuza team up to fight these interlopers with bloody results. Interesting on many levels, much of the film was shown in Seagal's old neighborhood, and Seagal himself speaks fluent Japanese in some scenes, but ultimately not worth digging up unless you're a Seagal diehard. Not too many of them around these days. Into the Sun gets D+. Now I return to the world of the Mill Creek Pure Terror 50-film horror-themed public domain source DVD box set to pull up The Dungeon of Harrow, a 1962 drive-in staple that was centered around a shipwreck survivor who was stuck on a remote island where an insane count and his equally crazy servants live on. The Mill Creek print was a common version of the film, which had a semi-nude scene. A female servant visits the hero with a breast practically spilling out of a blouse. That must have given plenty of early 1960s driving patrons quite a surprise removed from it. Although the uncut version has been restored for the Vinegar Syndrome release, so track that one down if you're a fan. Dungeon of Harrow, D. Now the final film in this list was the very worst of the neo-analogic direct-to-video sequels to Clive Barker's classic horror Hellraiser. In this case, Rick Bote's incredibly pointless and atrocious Hellraiser Hellworld, or in other words, Hellraiser 8. This time, Bote sets the film in a sort of real world, where the Cenobites are just movie monsters and the protagonists are a bunch of young adults who attend a Hellraiser-themed rave party, where patrons can wear special masks with phone numbers printed on them, with the idea being that you can call one of them on your cell phone for an anonymous one-night stand. But soon reality gets really skewed when patrons begin to disappear, and the party's mysterious host reveals himself to have a sinister agenda, and the Cenobites make appearances, slaughtering their way for the clueless clientele. Man, this movie was a fucking pits. A stupid idea that got worthless treatment by Rick Bote, who has cemented his reputation as the worst director the Hellraiser franchise ever received. And he directed like 3 of the Hellraiser sequels. Basically 6, 7, and 8. Now many people hate the subsequent 2 Ashcan production Hellraiser sequels, Revelations and Judgment, but at least those 2 films were sticking to the franchise canon instead of Rick Bote's trilogy of unrelated films, clumsily rejigged to feature Pinhead and the Cenobites in them like old-fashioned horror show hosts. I hope Rick Bote never makes another Hellraiser movie again. That guy's just plain pathetic. Hellraiser Hellworld gets a D-. And there goes another installment of the D Spectrum. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did in retracing our steps through the cinematic hits we saw in our last 25 episodes for 2020. I hope you, dear fans, enjoyed the upcoming 2021 season. With the coronavirus ruining 2020 for many people, I think it's safe to say that the new year will be a return to the normal we were enjoying before this bloody pandemic struck, what with the vaccines being manufactured at this point, and stay safe enough to enjoy your lives for the fullest. Now, we'll do a couple more episodes of basically a year in review of 2020 in the next, dying days of this year. And maybe an extra episode for the New Year's Eve, we'll see about it. I'll see you again next time. That's it for this episode, and this is the Apatros Review. See ya.